Welcome to Career Tools. This is Wendy.
And this is Sarah.
Today's cast, Join a Professional Association, Part 1 of 2.
Questions this cast answers are, why join a professional association? Which professional association should I join? And what do I do when I've joined a professional association?
If you want answers to these questions and more, keep listening.
Ever feel like your job is talking to everyone, even when meetings could have been emails? The secret to unlocking communication is DISC, and we can teach you how to use DISC at our Effective Communicator Conference. The next one is on July 24th in Cupertino. There's also an Effective Manager course the day before on July 23rd that same week. Come see us and learn how to communicate effectively, even if your boss loves meetings. July 23rd and 24th in Cupertino. Sign up at manager-tools.com/training.
The requirement for joining a professional association in your role ranges from essential to completely optional, and it depends on your role, your specialism, and your industry. But we suggest that joining a professional association is highly beneficial to your career, even when it's not essential to practicing your profession. And in this cast, we're going to tell you why.
Yeah, exactly. So the outline we're going to follow for today's podcast is starting with research which association to join, then attend meetings and activities, join committees, and take professional development opportunities.
So the first point of this is obviously research which association to join. So we'll start by explaining a little bit about what these things are. So we're going to go backwards and forwards between different terms for the same thing. So in some terms, they're called professional organizations or associations, or in a second, we're going to find out they're called all sorts of things. But basically, they are a group of people who all do the same job, and they get together to learn together, to support each other, sometimes to lobby for better conditions for themselves. They can be big and small. Sometimes they're geographically based, but they're usually around a single profession, a job. In some areas, it can be a huge organization and offer all sorts of things. In some places, it's much smaller and they maybe only offer a newsletter. In some skills and industries and geographical areas, there's only one to join. And in others, there's a whole bunch of choices. And so you need to do some research into finding what your options are and which one to join.
Yeah, essentially what Wendy's saying is there are a lot of options out there, and you're going to need to spend a little bit of time trying to figure out which one you'd like to join based on a number of factors. And we're going to help you consider those factors and what are the value of choosing one that's closer to you geographically versus one that's got a larger base versus one that's got more events potentially going on. We're going to talk all about that in this cast. So to start, we're going to give you some examples of professional organizations so that you can keep the differences in mind while we discuss the factors to take into account when you're considering which ones to join.
So if you were in HR, the biggest professional association for HR professionals is the Society for Human Resource Management, which is usually written SHRM.
Is that in the world, Wendy? Or is that in the United States?
It's in the world.
Oh, okay, so it's international.
It's an international one. There is a British one that I think is bigger in Britain, but I think it's the biggest in the world. Another one that's big in the US is the National Human Resources Association. So there's two choices there, and depending on these factors we're going to discuss, you might join one over the other. If you were in the public sector, so you worked for government, you might want an association that specifically has public sector members, so the people who work in government like you do, because they have specific interests and worries,
challenges.
Challenges, that's a better word, for the public sector. So there is a public sector HR association. And for IT, it's similar. There is the biggest one, the worldwide biggest one there's 100,000 members from memory, is the Association for Computer Machinery, which kind of makes me laugh because that sounds like it's not for people.
It's for the robots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another huge one in IT is the Information Systems Audit and Control Association, which is ISACA. And it actually takes you ages to find out what it stands for because they barely write that out, because ISACA is easier to say. And I'm pretty sure they probably pronounce that as a word, but I'm not going to. And if you were in the public sector and you wanted something local, the Texas Association for Governmental Information Technology, I happen to know a member of that one. So you might not want to be in an organization that's worldwide. You might want to just be in something where all the events are within flying distance, I guess, in Texas. And so that one might be interesting to you.
Yeah. And again, we're going to talk about, right? We're going to talk about the different things to consider.
Mm-hmm. So that gives you an idea of some of the ranges of, like, those are some of the choices you might have if you were in those roles. And now when we talk about them, you'll have an idea what the choices might have been, right?
Exactly. Now, folks know, in this cast, we are assuming that you are somewhat early in your career when you're listening to this guidance. It's not necessarily true, though. And no, it will still apply, even if you're in your mid-career or your late career. But investing in your career through professional associations is much like investing in basically any other area. Compound interest means that the earlier you start, the easier it is to do it well. So don't think just because you're brand new to your career, you're early on, it's too early to join a professional association or organization. All professional organizations offer a series of career benefits, which again, we're going to list shortly. But for some, there are non-negotiable memberships in a specific working area. So let's cover that first for those of you that are mandated to join one.
So how crucial is a professional organization membership? So the influence that professional organizations have over their area, and therefore the compulsion they have over you to join, varies. In 2/3 of the US states, you must be a member of the Bar Association to practice as a lawyer. So that means you have to have passed your exams, joined the bar, which is something separate, and then joined the Bar Association in order to practice. So being a member of the Lawyers Professional Association is required to do your job. Whereas if you're an engineer, you have to get the license issued by the state, but you don't have to join the association, the American Society of Civil Engineers, that the equivalent association. You don't have to be a member of the association, even though they issue certificates and they do training courses. It sounds like you should join them, but you don't have to. As long as you've got your engineering license, you're good. So even though those two professions, if you look at the websites and the qualifications, they look like they're similar, the requirements are different.
Yeah, similar but wildly different simultaneously. Exactly. And those are just examples of potential, in certain areas, mandates, right, for being a members of these associations. There's then the example of project management. In project management, professional organization membership or certification seems to be more of a nice to have, but not really essential. I mean, in all our conferences, we now offer PDU credits for those people who are part of that association. And more important for hiring managers, in our experience, is can the project manager deliver a project on time, on budget, and in scope? That seems to be more important than are they certified and are their credits kept up to date?
Yes, exactly. And in IT, there's a multitude of, I just went through 3, that if you search for IT associations, Google says there's 4 billion results. There's a multitude of associations and certifications that you can choose from. And it's very common for IT professionals to have certifications in languages or programming languages that they have never used. And it's equally common for them for them to be very proficient in languages that they don't have certifications for. And when it comes to hiring, either can be acceptable. It depends on the hiring manager, and it depends on the role. If you're brand new and you've never had an IT job before, then a certification is a good thing because it proves that you at least have used that program enough to get the certification. If you've been doing it for 10 years and you never got the certificate, but you've proved that you can use it and you can pass a technical interview, the certificate doesn't matter. Because it goes either way, it really depends on the circumstances whether or not you need it.
Yeah, that reminds me a little bit, Wendy, of that hiring managers saying, I either want a degree or 10 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that, right? It's that there's a certain amount of experience that will cover your bases when it comes to certain certifications, and it doesn't necessarily make or break your ability to be incredibly successful at the thing that you do. So, folks, obviously, if membership in a specific professional organization is a requirement for doing the work you want to do, joining that particular one is the choice that you make. I mean, you don't have choices. Let's just say join the one that you need to join in order to get the job you want to get. If you, though, don't fall into that category, there's not a mandate. If you still have some choices, there are some more considerations to make. So let's go over those considerations, starting with, how can this association benefit my network?
So this breaks down into a couple of areas. And the first is proximity. So all other things being equal, which as Mark says, they never are. If an association has a chapter that meets within a distance, which means that you could go to the meetings in person, choose that one. Because despite all the work we've done on remote relationships, meeting in person is still better. I always think about this when people say, I met my soulmate. What if my soulmate's in Australia? Like, there has to be a proximity clause to that, because if you never are within saying hi distance of your soulmate, you never meet them. If someone's going to help you with your network, you have to be within proximity of them. And so meeting people and improving your network, there's a proximity angle to that. And so if that chapter is meeting in person and you can go and meet those people in person, you don't have the restrictions of, oh, everybody jumps on the Zoom call at exactly when the meeting starts. Oh, somebody told me the other day, meetings start at 5 past the hour when you're on Zoom. No, Zoom meetings start at 9 o'clock because that's when I told you it was going to start. She told me, no, we start them all at 5 past in our company, just in case people have technical issues.
Mm-hmm. Actually, what I was going to say was, and we're going to talk about this more, folks, kind of going back to the geography thing is, in a lot of the cases, one of the real values of these professional associations is network extending, network building. If you have a bunch of people in your association that are within you or within a close distance to you, you can even stretch your ability to network beyond the meetings. You can go for coffee with a person because, oh my gosh, they and you have something in common. And you can build upon that because of the proximity.
Yeah, you can't have out of meeting. Well, you could have out of meeting meetings.
Yeah.
If you were only meeting by Zoom, but it's harder, right? Those more relaxed meetings just don't happen the same way.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in the examples we gave you earlier, the national and international groups have local chapters, but as I was saying, you might choose the Texas Association of Government Information Technology because you live in Texas, and all the events that they're going to put on will be easier to get to. Easier is relative in Texas, but the events will be easier to get to because they're all in one state.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And to continue the topic, that is how can this association benefit my network? The other thing to consider is direction. That is, choose the association to which the people at the top of your organization belong. Or maybe not necessarily the people at the top of your organization. Maybe it could be people whom you admire. It could be people whom you aspire to be more like. This is a good discriminator for a couple of reasons. First, if you want to be like those people, it makes sense to take the same actions they did, where that makes sense. And if professional associations is one, why not? And additionally, it gives you the possibility of, meeting them, talking to them, developing a relationship with them, adding those people that you admire, that you aspire to be more like, adding those people to your network. So there's a lot of good reasons for choosing one based upon the people that you most want to be like, or you most are proud of. Communication exchanges have outcomes, and while nothing is perfect, Wouldn't it be useful to learn how to effectively communicate in a way that achieves the best results possible? That's what I thought. While our effective communicator training is great for managers, it's just as applicable for individual contributors, especially those who are customer facing, whether it's internally or externally, or who are on project teams. The effective communicator training is just overall great for organizations who want to practice a way of achieving the best outcome possible in all scenarios. If you're interested in learning more, contact Maggie by emailing her at customerservice@manager-tools.com.
Your next question is, how can this association benefit my professional development? And the simple answer to this would be choose the larger association. We're not going to go necessarily with the simple answer, but we'll go with that one for a second. If you want to be learning, networking, and growing through your association membership, and you do, that's why you're investing in it, then it makes sense to choose the one that's holding meetings, having events, providing resources, and so on. And it also means that a larger organization is better in a lot of cases, because the larger the organization, the more likely it is that they have the resources to put on events. And the more people there are, the more people you can network with, and so on and so forth. The bigger it is, the better it is.
Yeah, it's more than just a monthly newsletter.
In theory.
In theory, exactly. However, keep in mind, the law of diminishing returns applies. There's a limit to how many events you can go to and how many people you can network with. So while, yes, generally choosing a larger organization that has more events is a good idea, it might be better to choose a smaller organization where you can have a few more direct relationships, as opposed to larger group relationships, or maybe a mentoring relationship with someone that could provide a richer education for you specifically. Or maybe it's a closer relationship with one very well-respected and well-connected individual. And that could be better than a loose relationship with a whole bunch more people, the way you'd get it from one of those larger associations or organizations. So back to the examples. The examples we used. In the human resources example, we gave you earlier the Society for Human Resource Management, and it is the biggest organization. But you might choose not the global, worldwide, many, many events for all of the HR professionals everywhere association, and you might instead choose the National Human Resources Association, because it's smaller. There's just fewer people. There are events, but fewer events. And you can have more of those one-to-one connections and relationships because every event you go to doesn't have 10,000 people at it.
And we're going to say this later, but I'll say it now just in case we're putting this idea in your head. You are allowed to join more than one. So,
yeah, you are.
There isn't actually a choice to be made, but we're assuming that you are early in your career and there is a financial choice here. So these associations can be quite expensive, especially if it's early in your career. So we're assuming that you would be choosing only one because of financial reasons. If you wanted to choose both, you are allowed to join more than one. There isn't a ruling about that.
Yeah, it's not like they won't let you in. Oh,
Yes.
You're one of them.
Exactly.
No, not allowed.
So the next question is, how will this association reflect on your resume? And that's a trick question because it won't. Membership in professional associations, unless they're required to carry out your role, they don't go on your resume. Unless you're a lawyer and you're required to be a member of the bar association, in which case you would put on your resume, member of the bar association of wherever in good standing, it doesn't go on your resume. But the idea that your membership in certain association reflects on you is not entirely the wrong idea.
That's exactly it. You don't necessarily put this membership, as Wendy said, on your resume, but reading information from, taking courses from, obtaining certifications from this association is reflected on you. Now, what that means is if those certifications or courses are being given to you by an association that's seen as weak or inferior or reflects not so well on you, those don't do you a great service. So ask your colleagues potentially, or your mentors even, for recommendations on a reputable organization that you might join. Part of the reason for joining these associations is to add value to your career portfolio, right? To expose you to new, different learnings and opportunities. And choosing an association with a less than ideal reputation isn't going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Next question. How will this association broaden my horizons? So once we leave the confines of school, where in part our job is to learn what we don't know, if you didn't know that, that's what the reason for going to school is. It's easy to narrow our focus on that which we need to know for our jobs in our own company, and to lose track of all of the innovations that are happening outside of our own small world.
And it happens naturally, right? We're busy. We just got out of school. We're trying to pay off our student loans. We're trying to get all these things done. And so we're just focused. We're focused internally, and we're not thinking about the external world. Now, that said, choosing a very narrowly focused association. So, for example, the Association of Forensic Orthodontists.
It's a real association.
I'm so sorry, orthodontists. I apologize. What a jerk move. Okay, so a really, really small, narrowly focused association, American Association for Forensic Orthodontists, might limit your exposure to other career opportunities. Think about it. The other people that are members there are going to do that exact same thing. You're not exposing yourself to people who do other things in different areas. I mean, that is a very specific area. On the other hand, a really broad organization like the Association for Computer Machinery, something we mentioned earlier, might have too much for you to take in because it is so vast and so broad. And finding those people in a large association that have overlapping areas of maybe interest or experiences that might be difficult to find just because of the breadth of people that are going to be a member.
And I started to mention this earlier, but the cost of membership is also, you could put that in your considerations but we put it at the end because once you've considered all of the other factors, we want you then to consider cost. These memberships can be quite expensive, especially when you look at the annual cost and you're looking at it from a graduate salary. I remember looking at it in my first year working and thinking, how much? But don't choose the association with the lowest cost automatically. Look at all of the other opportunities that we've just listed. Which one is the most appropriate and the most valuable to you? Which one gives you the most return on investment? If you use the membership to its fullest extent, you'll get a whole career out of it. It's expensive early on, but later it will be cheaper because of all those opportunities you're going to get out of it, right? You're going to progress faster. You're going to get promoted more. You're going to get more salary quicker if you use this association to the fullest extent that you can. And therefore, this amount is tiny compared with how much you're going to get out of it if you use it. So even though it's expensive now, you might want to spend that. We would advise you spend that money. Don't spend it like we all spend a gym membership in January, though. Spend it and then never use it. You've got to spend it and then use all of the opportunities that you are spending money for.
You're absolutely right. Actually, that brings up, it reminds me of, I should say, Career Tools listeners, I'm sure you're familiar with Mark Horstman, one of our founders. And that's something he often says about his time at West Point. Now, if you know anything about West Point, you don't pay to go to West Point. You have to commit your next however many years in the military. So you do pay to go to West Point, but it's not as expensive as, say, going to Yale to be educated. Now, in terms of that situation, that type of school, which you're committing 5 years of your life to the military to go to, the thing about it is you leave with a lot of connections, a lot of relationships. So it is a huge investment, and it is a huge long-term investment that, if you make that investment, pays off. So it could be a situation like that. But to Wendy's point, you must make sure you use it for what it's worth. You have to take every opportunity. investing in a high-priced membership when you're not going to take advantage of all the tools it has to offer, you might be wasting your money. You've got to make sure you're committed to actually using it for all that it's worth, especially if you can't really afford it that much. Now, we should also say, there's nothing to stop you joining multiple associations, as Wendy mentioned earlier. As long as you meet their qualification criteria, go for it. This guidance has assumed, again, that you are considering joining only one for cost reasons, or maybe time reasons, or whatever it may be that you've decided, I need to pick one, and which one will I pick? But if that's not an issue for you, then join as many as you think are helpful. You know, if you find one and it doesn't give you everything, and there's this other one that gives you the missing parts, and you, again, will take advantage of all of the things that both of those have to offer while you're a member of them simultaneously, then do that.
So we've given you a lot to think about, some associations to research, and a bunch of questions to ask yourself. So we'll leave you there of part 1. And next week, we'll pick up with what you do once you've joined the association.